So thank you very much for everyone that's joining the webinar and the live stream today. Good afternoon, and hopefully you're going to enjoy what we're serving up for you today. It's the Future of Food at Work event. My name's Shane, and I'll be moderating today on behalf of City Pantry. And we brought together a number of speakers to help cover the topic and hopefully provide some insight into what the future might hold in terms of food and work itself. And we brought together a number of speakers that hopefully you can see on the slides now to help cover the topic and hopefully provide some insight into how that's going to look. And what we're going to do, or just to go over what today's program will entail, we're going to look at the future of food at work, which is going to be covered by Ben Carter, Managing Director here at City Pantry. And then following that, we're going to look at food in the workplace, and specifically through the lens of Bumble. And Beth Cooper, the Wellbeing and Events Lead, will be taking that for us. And then after that, we're going to have a mini panel featuring Paz Sama from Bad Brownie and Kate Holt from Country City Catering. And we'll be talking about the COVID-19 impact on the hospitality industry, and specifically about how it may have impacted their businesses and what they've done to respond to it. Then we'll come back to the presentations where we'll have Shukri Zahoni from Urbit, one of our logistic partners, talking through the challenges of logistics during this time, what needs to change and what has changed. And then moving on from that, we'll wrap up with Alex Jones, the head of talent here at City Pantry. We'll be talking about employee engagement and how food plays its part in that relationship. And then finally, if we have enough time, we'll do a bit of a Q&A and a bit of discussion where we can go through any of the comments and questions that come in during the event. Now, throughout the event, you can ask questions in the comments section via YouTube, and we've got our team monitoring it. So feel free to put any questions or comments in that section, and we will do our best to make sure we get round to those towards the end so that we can go through any of the conversations or questions that come up during that period. So at this point, I'd like to hand over to Ben to take us through City Pantry's take on the future of food at work. Over to you, please, Ben.
Classic first unmute issue. Thanks, Shane, and good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this webinar. I'm just going to tee it off by just talking about some of the observations we are seeing in this extraordinary time, and really how we see, as the title says, food at work sort of evolving over the coming months and years. Next slide, please. So just a quick one on us. City Pantry has been around for several years. We are the UK's leading food delivery, B2B food delivery business. And our mission is all about making people's working lives better. And obviously, we've had to pivot recently to making sure that we can reflect that both when people are in the office, but also when they are working from home. And the way we do that is we connect with amazing restaurants and caterers and deliver to some of the biggest businesses across the UK. City Pantry was acquired by Just Eat in last July, and we are part of the Just Eat Takeaway group, of which more now. So Just Eat Takeaway is the group you may not have heard of, comprising of Just Eat and Takeaway merger, which happened at the start of this year. We are now the biggest online food delivery business outside of China in the world. And we are building not only a global food delivery platform for consumers, but also for businesses. And we're in 24 countries and growing. And I think what's really important is that we see huge potential for B2B, and specifically for enabling employers to use platforms such as ourselves to drive deeper engagement with their employees through food delivery. So pre-COVID, it was all going great, as I'm sure it was for many businesses, and we were feeding over 30,000 employees a week at businesses across a number of the UK's major cities, delivering to around 300 offices a week, and we had over 600 restaurant and vendor partners on the platform. We were growing very strongly, and as I said, one of the reasons why we were acquired by Just Eat last summer was because Just Eat really sees the potential in the B2B food delivery space, and we had great aspirations at not only continuing to accelerate our national expansion, but also to go overseas as well. And obviously, when COVID hit, we had to react very quickly, and we've had to pivot. But what I'm really, really pleased with is the resilience our business has shown, our teams have shown, but most importantly, that we've been able to continue to deliver not only for our corporate customers, but also for our restaurant and our vendor partners. And the way we've done that is that obviously overnight we saw 90% of our customers close their offices and work from home. And I was just trying to work it out now. I think we're now in week 25 or week 26 of working from home. That's like 6 months of working from home, which is absolutely insane. I remember when it started, we never thought we would be off and out of the office for this long, but that's been the reality. But what we've absolutely wanted to continue to do is to enable our customers to remain connected to their teams. And we've done that sort of in a number of ways. So first of all, we've launched a service where our corporate customers can buy Just Eat gift cards through us, which employees can then use when they're at home to order lunch, to order dinner, to order breakfast. Just Eat has over 37,000 restaurants now across the country on the platform. Huge amount of food choice, over 100 different cuisine types. So a great sort of opportunity for employers to be able to reward their employees with food. But we also created a completely new proposition, and I'm particularly proud of this because the team came up with this in less than 2 weeks from idea to go live. And it's now delivering a sizable amount of revenue for us, but more importantly, it's really proving an answer for a number of our customers in how to continue to engage with their teams. And I know that Bumble are going to talk about this specifically today, and I'm delighted sort of at how well it's gone. But Pantry packages is all around curated packages, be it recipe boxes to tap into the scratch cooking trend, be it treat boxes from a number of our partners, including Brownie, who are on this webinar, but also sort of curated sort of ingredients, curated meal packs, cocktail kits, barbecue kits, you name it, we've got it. And it was all around an insight that obviously we wanted our customers to be able to keep in touch with their employees, but we're all, let's face it, get bored working from home. It's lonely. You want to liven it up every now and then. Countless Zoom calls back to back and conference calls. So we just thought, actually, let's give our customers the opportunity to hold virtual parties to theme around specific events, whether it was the early summer bank holidays, or actually just celebrate milestones and achievements that individual businesses have made. And also just to give again customers an ability to really maintain contact with their employees, and for our partners to give them a new opportunity to market, because clearly for a lot of our restaurant partners, in dining had to stop straight away. Many of them hadn't done delivery before, and so had to pivot to delivery very quickly. And so this was a great way of opening up a new revenue opportunity for them, but also enabling our customers to keep connected. And then really importantly, obviously the whole country joined in the national effort, and this was really important to us. And we've donated over 58,000 meals to hospitals, to food banks, to hostels, mainly in London, really as sort of part of a Feeding Your Community initiative. And we continue to do that. And I'm really, really pleased that we've been able to help a lot of our food partners get food to some of the most needy. Some cases in point, we work with Greggs to give away thousands of donuts, for example. And we continue to do that. Even now, the national effort has obviously slowed down a bit. So we've heard the phrase "the new normal" probably more times than anyone would like, but what does it really look like? And I think the reality is that it's that sort of that old cliche of everything changes but nothing really is. In that, if you look at the restaurant and catering space, clearly the hospitality industry has been hugely impacted by COVID. But I think for every sort of impact that it has had negatively, there is an opportunity. Corporate customers, again, have had to pivot very quickly from being office-based, from having canteens, from having regular lunches that we were providing, regular team lunches, to now having a workforce who are remotely based, have for some cases, skeleton workforces in offices, and for many not returning to offices till 2021. And then individual eaters, again, no longer being in offices 5 days a week, pivoting between office and home, working remotely, but still wanting that contact and still wanting to be able to benefit from subsidized food and other perks that their employers were offering and providing them. So let's just dig into that in a bit more detail. So I think in terms of restaurants and caterers, what COVID has done is really put sharp focus on delivery and the opportunity that delivery brings. So the good news is it has opened up a new sales channel, and clearly delivery is going to be key for the industry's recovery, and we've seen that throughout. But also what we are seeing is that canteens are no longer in use in many offices, not just because not many people are in offices, but also because it's very hard to enforce social distancing around canteens. So actually more flexible, more variable solutions now have an opportunity to thrive. Delivery-only concepts versus preparing food on site. And ultimately data and sort of personalized sort of meals and requirements driving sort of menu choice. And I think what it means for restaurants, for caterers, for food partners is to look to those delivery partners for sort of new channels to market. But it also means those channels to market will start to spring up in offices once people return to work in offices, either on a skeleton basis or on a flexible basis later on in the year. And in terms of corporate customers, building on that, obviously we are going to see this sort of hybrid solution now. We've heard big statements from a number of companies. Facebook, Twitter have all said that they can see a scenario where people don't work in offices. But I think the reality will be that we a hybrid, absolute flexible working will be a principle that any responsible company will adopt. And you'll see employees flex between office and home and different locations, obviously to manage people flow, to manage social distancing, but also because I think we've all proven that we can work flexibly like this, and the world hasn't stopped. Yes, it's changed, but it hasn't stopped. So I think there'll be a seismic shift, which I think then means customers need to think about, well, how do we continue to connect and engage with employees when they're at home? What does that look like? How do we deliver them the perks they want? Do they still want subsidized food? What does that look like? And I think also the delivered in model will become much more prevalent, given that canteens and food preparation on site becomes a lot more difficult. But I think the key principle, and the principle that we are adopting and really looking to work with all of our partners on, is to make sure that the working environment is safe, that it's COVID secure, and that we're doing everything we can to help you in that. And then as an employee or an individual eater, I think actually it's really good news, because I think what this will bring, obviously, as I said, is flexibility, but flexibility in choice, opening up different cuisine types, on demand and delivery becoming the norm, as opposed to necessarily canteens always being the norm. And obviously responding to safety concerns around allergens, for example. I think more personalization will become, again, a norm because of things like social distancing and wanting to reduce physical contact. So actually, I think if you're an individual eater, you're going to benefit from a lot more choice and a lot more opportunity in what you want to eat when you are in the office, but also when you're at home as well. And I've tried to be optimistic throughout. We sort of play different roles in our exec team of sort of being optimists and pessimists each week. Clearly, look, our business has been impacted. We're very fortunate to be part of a very big delivery group that has traded resiliently throughout this, and that group believes wholeheartedly in B2B and really being able to connect large corporate customers, medium corporate customers, and small corporate customers with their employees through food, and that will carry on. So I think actually in terms of relevance, food delivery into businesses is now more relevant than ever before. And for every negative, there is huge opportunity, as hopefully I'd outline. Behind all that, and in line with many sectors, technology is the catalyst here, and technology is the solution to enabling us to recover, to give us that flexibility and that security and that safety that we've talked about. But really, at the heart of our business and our ethos is to be community driven, and really what we want to make sure is that, and be very clear that if it wasn't for our restaurant, our catering, and our food partners, we wouldn't be here today. So we want to make sure we work with them to enable we open up new sales channels, new routes to market for them. And again, that's why this sort of hybrid proposition of supporting teams when they're in the office and now at home is so crucial. And that was short but sweet, but hopefully sort of painted the picture of how we see it from a City Pantry point of view and some of the key trends that we're observing and how we're preparing for the future.
Thank you very, very much for that, Ben. I think it's really insightful, and obviously from my own point of view, being part of the team, it's been, incredibly exciting to be part of that journey and just see how the business reacted and spun those ideas up. Remember, if you do have any questions, please feel free to add them to the comments on YouTube and we'll pick them up in the Q&A. If you are having issues adding anything to the comments or it's not coming up for you for whatever reason, you can also submit them on Twitter. Our handle is @CityPantry. You can also use the hashtag the future of food at work. So you can get in touch with us that way as well. And we'll be more than happy to address any questions as we come towards the end of today's session. So thank you again, Ben. I'd now like to invite Beth Cooper, Wellbeing and Events Lead at Bumble, to take us through the role that food plays in the workplace for them. Over to you, please, Beth.
Thanks, Shane. Hi, everyone. I'm Beth Cooper, the Wellbeing and Events Lead at Bumble. Bumble is a world-leading dating app, and since our company is about bringing people together, it is vital that our staff and company feel connected to each other. So it is my job to do this through our extensive wellbeing program, where bespoke catering is a massive part of this. Luckily, during lockdown, most people were able to continue work from home without too many disruptions to their daily roles, but there has been a massive hit to our wellbeing and catering offering. People are used to having everything available at the office, from catered breakfast, lunch, dinner, daily treats, and everything you could think of in between. So it was a big adjustment for everyone to get used to providing these meals for themselves, and in many cases, this impacted their finances. We made the decision early on that we would not be providing the same catering and wellbeing services while people were working from home, so this budget could be used in other areas of the company. But we still wanted to keep staff connected and engaged, so we introduced pantry packages to highlight celebration days that we would normally have in the office, including ones from Brownies and Country City Catering. We also started doing First Friday lunches, where staff could order meals or vouchers to be delivered to their home on the first Friday of every month to enjoy a virtual lunch with their team. We are planning to return to the office fully in January 2021, with a cultural shift from people working from home 2 days a week. This means that our catering offering will shift so people do not feel like they're missing out when they're not in the office. Food is very communal in our office, with buffet lunches and sharing snacks throughout the day. But going back post-COVID, this is going to change, and people are having individual meals and snacks, a more grab-and-go style of eating. Attention to detail is key, and this goes as far as having individually wrapped tea bags so staff don't have to worry about contamination. We still want to provide the extensive range and high standards which are expected by our staff, but it will have to be achieved in a more individualised way. I think this will negatively impact the social aspect of having lunch all together in a canteen, as seating will be reduced and people will be encouraged to take their food elsewhere in the office to avoid crowding. I also worry about the environmental impacts that this individually packaged food brings with it. Alongside the change in catering, we are going to be looking into increasing recycling options in our company, and this has been something that's been difficult to implement in the past, so it is a challenge for us. I would say that our food offering is one of the best available compared to our competitors, and we pride ourselves in having the top range of vendors supply all our groceries and meals. Our offering is so bespoke that any individual requests and feedback are always listened to and actioned. Food definitely feeds into recruitment intention of our staff, reflecting our wellbeing score of 4.6 on Glassdoor. But I think more importantly, it is the community culture that comes with eating together that really drives staff engagement and morale. And this is something that's vital to hold on to when coming back to the office. To be honest, I'm still coming up with the best way to continue the sense of community around food while making sure that everyone feels comfortable with the new normal and staying safe in the office. But I think the City Pantry individual choice option is something that can help with this. But I'm also very keen to hear ideas from anyone else. So that was a quick overview of what we do and what we're planning to do with food in the workplace. And I hope it's helped give a bit of insight. And like I said, happy to talk through ideas with anyone. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Beth. I mean, it's incredibly interesting to get your perspective on how important food is in the workplace and how it's actually gonna change, certainly from that employee engagement and kind of community feel that you have when everyone can share a close space, to now actually being more functional in how it's something you've got to provide to also, instill confidence that people can come back to the office. But thank you very much for taking us through that. And again, if anyone does have any specific questions for Beth, please submit them on Twitter, and we will make sure that we can answer them at the end and go through them. But thank you very much. Now we're going to go over to our what we're calling a mini panel featuring two of our vendor partners. So we're going to talk with Kate Hull from Country City Catering and Paz Samar from Bad Brownie. And we're going to be talking or discussing the COVID-19 impact on the hospitality industry and how that's kind of impacted their businesses specifically. So first of all, I'm going to throw over to Kate. Maybe if you could give us a bit of an introduction to yourself and then also a bit of history and introduction to Country City Catering.
Thank you. So I'm Kate. I'm a co-founder of Country City Catering alongside my business partner, Lewis. We decided to start our business back in September 2017. We're both trained chefs, so we really just wanted to do something for ourselves. And the branding behind our company is all about country-inspired, seasonal and sustainable produce. We primarily started off as an event catering company, but very quickly fell into drop-off catering, which is how we started working with City Pantry.
And we're very glad you did. And then if I could go over the same question for you, please, Paz.
Of course. So my name's Paz, and I set up Bad Brownie along with my business partner, Morag. We set that up about 7 years ago now. Time does fly, I must say. I'm used to saying 3 years ago, but now it's 7 years. Bad Brownie is effectively a producer of the most amazing chocolate brownies. And that's really what inspired us to set it up. Morag and I both love food and we love chocolate more than anything. And we said, let's set up a company that just specializes in chocolate brownies. Everyone loves getting chocolate. And that's what we did. So that was 7 years ago. We've done something like 450 flavors since we started. And prior to COVID, and obviously we'll talk about that later, we were selling our brownies across a store in Canary Wharf. We had corporate orders through you guys. We were sending out over the website. We did lots of food markets. I mean, anywhere we could be, we were, and we loved it. So yeah, it's been a fantastic journey so far, and let's see what happens next.
And I can definitely attest to the quality of the brownies. I've had more than my fair share. They're excellent and a firm favourite at the office. So staying with you briefly, Paz, how has lockdown affected your business? How have you seen it impact yourself?
So the only way I can really describe it is as being a roller coaster. Like it really has been just up and down right from the beginning. So, and there's really some very distinct phases. The very beginning, the first few days was, Morag and I were just terrified. We're on the phone to each other constantly. We're just like, what is this? What's happened? Is this real? Which I think everyone, in this call is probably experiencing. And suddenly overnight, we saw our corporate orders being cancelled. We saw our wholesale orders being cancelled because, of course, cafes and places like that had shut. We had our shop in Canary Wharf closed. Our food markets closed, and all the festivals for the whole year cancelled, or for several months. So suddenly we're just like, hang on, we've just lost 75-80% of our turnover overnight, effectively. And that was pretty frightening. But then on the plus side, I mentioned earlier that we had our online business, and actually that only ever accounted for about a fifth of the company. And suddenly we saw that, increase and pick up quite dramatically and quite quickly. It started with Mother's Day, I think, if I recall correctly, and everyone was sending out gifts because they couldn't be with their loved ones. And from there on, it basically increased all throughout for a couple of months. And then we had a peak probably at the end of May, I would say. And then since then, it's kind of plateaued and come down a bit. But it's really interesting. It has been a roller coaster, and it has been two phases. In the beginning, it was people buying for themselves, for their friends, because we can send them all over the country. Just it's an overnight service. It's very easy to get the brownies delivered. And more recently, and perhaps we'll get onto this later, we've noticed lots more companies coming to us, emailing us, and through City Pantry as well, just saying, we want to find a way of sending something out to our team. But I know we'll talk about that in a bit. But certainly it shifted a little bit from customers coming to us directly to also now having many more corporates and lots of companies using us as well. So it's really been a journey, and we can't predict day in, day out, like what's going to happen from one day to the next. It changes every single day. So who knows? But we'll take what comes.
Thank you very much. I mean, you're absolutely right. That kind of predictive nature of things and the forecasting that happens at the moment, it's all up in the air. That's the one thing that's the constant is change. So, but it's good to see that you've kind of adapted and that online side of the business has picked up. Kate, if I could go over to you, how has lockdown affected your business, and what have you seen happen?
Yeah, so I mean, in the same way, it has been definitely a roller coaster. I definitely agree with that. Straight away, like say overnight, all of our events were just cancelled, even ones on the day. We were left with company's food that was just even paid for that day. And of course, we donated it where we could. And then straight away, I think the first thing we jumped on was all of the meals for the NHS. All of a sudden, that was actually the first thing that hit. And we were like, this is great. And it is fantastic, because that was supporting the hospitals, but it was also supporting caterers like us to be able to do meals. One of the things we did was we emptied the freezer with all of this great produce that had been frozen safely, but then we were like, well, this is almost money in the freezer. So we were using that to make these meals. And that was really good. And that was really full on. We were doing hundreds of meals daily, but that did kind of start to die off. So that's when we thought, well, what can we do next? And about 50% of our business has always been events and drop-off catering. So obviously we just considered that events were off the cards for however knows how long. So we've just really expanded the drop-off side of our business. So we're already set up to do it. Luckily for us, I think a lot of event catering companies who primarily do events might have struggled a lot more than us, because we already had the setup for that. So in the same way, at first we targeted the individual at home. They were ordering the fresh produce from us and ready meals. They didn't have to go out to the shops. And that, again, was really full on for like another month. But then when everything started to relax, people were getting bored at home, they started going back to the shops. That's when we were actually being contacted by you guys with your initiative of the Pantry packages. And that just opened up our product to the corporate market, which, although we do have our own kind of corporate clients, but it's so many more opened up for you guys. So yeah, that's where we are now, really. I think through June and July we saw a lot of summer parties. It was a lot of companies wanting to do something big, so we really kind of targeted that more luxury picnic hamper. So it was more the one-off that companies would do, kind of one-off through the summer instead of daily, and those have been doing really well. We've been doing from 10 people up to say 300, which is what we did with Bumble recently. But yeah, I think that's kind of where we are right now. We're starting to see a few events coming back, but we're really just concentration on these corporate home deliveries.
Okay, thank you very much for the thorough answer there, Kate. I think you've hinted on it a little bit that those kind of green shoots returning and things moving on as we move throughout July and into August now. And we've seen that lockdown started to be eased in certain areas, and things are changing in that regard. If I stay with you, Kate, what's it been like? Have you noticed any changes in terms of that lockdown easing? Has anything changed in that regard?
We're starting to see some people go back to the offices in very small numbers, very small numbers. A few film shoots we're starting to do catering for. But really from a delivery perspective, what's changed is the roads have just become a lot busier. And everywhere's it's almost back to normal, but just not with the workload. I think August is going to be a lot quieter with the corporate, because it always is. August is always a quiet month for us, because it's when corporate companies encourage their staff to take holidays. What used to keep us going in August was festivals. So obviously, like the festival crew catering, we used to do a lot of that. So we're actually going to just take this month to just develop everything ready with these individually boxed meals, because primarily that is really what everyone is going to be wanting when they go back to work.
Okay, thank you. And Pads, from your point of view, have you noticed anything in terms of lockdown changing and easing? Have you seen anything from your side?
Yeah, definitely. So firstly, of course, we've seen the road traffic as well. I used to be able to drive into work in 40 minutes. Now it takes twice as long. So that's a slight negative. But we have seen a very distinct shift. So when lockdown was in full swing, like I was saying earlier, it's mainly kind of personal customers who are coming to us and who are sending gifts saying, happy birthday, sorry, can't be there, happy anniversary, or they might have a wedding that was cancelled and they'd say, I'm sorry that was cancelled, but here's something to cheer you up. And since lockdown's eased, people are seeing each other a bit more. They're seeing their friends, albeit in smaller groups. So I think that's kind of really died down a bit. But what really has taken off is the corporate orders, is basically lots of companies. And I think it's really difficult because there are certain elements of office culture that are quite subtle, And something like drinks on a Friday night, or kind of like, these water cooler movements where you just kind of like share little snippets of gossip, that's just gone for the majority of companies. And actually what we've realized is that lots of companies are embracing the fact that they need to make their employees feel connected somehow, because you can't do that face to face. And so they're using our brownies amongst other things, and sending them with messages kind of from the CEO or from the HR team saying, listen, thank you so much for your patience during this time. Thanks for working so hard. Here's a little something to remind you that we're all in it together. And, it's a really lovely way, because then, employees can open the box up and say, God, this is amazing. I feel really valued and I feel really loved, and what a lovely treat, because, I don't want to be forgotten. So we've definitely seen that ramp up quite a lot in comparison to how it was before. So it really has kind of shifted. Where one's fallen back, this one has increased. So, it has changed quite a lot.
Okay, thank you, and I can definitely vouch for that. I think one of the pantry packages we did ourselves was indeed a bad brownie box. We do like to practice what we preach, and I can definitely say it definitely made me feel connected to the company, and it was nice that it was some very good chocolatey brownies. Kept the kids awake for a while, but it was they were good nonetheless. Now on that topic of what the future is going to bring, if I can stay with you briefly, Paz, what do you think what are your predictions for the future? Do you think the hospitality industry is going to bounce back, or do you think this is a gradual climb and a total change from what we've seen before?
I think it's in the middle, to be honest. I don't think we'll ever see the bounce back that we saw. I don't think the situation will go back to how it was before. I think that's certainly not for several months, because there's going to be so much uncertainty. There's going to be responsibilities towards kind of duty of care of the health of visitors and employees, etc. So I think it's going to be really tricky to go back to that. But I think, we've seen, both Kate and I and other companies, everyone is pivoting where they can. And so both with suppliers and hospitality, there are just going to be some changes, and the desire is still there. People want to be fed, people want to go out, people want to socialize. Everyone just has to learn how to do it in a very different way. So I think, it's maybe not going to bounce back to exactly the same scenario as it was before, but I think gradually it will come back in terms of value. But it is going to be tricky, and I think it's going to be a lot of kind of finding your way through this situation, and kind of seeing what works for someone else and trying to adjust to that and pivot to it yourself and do the same thing. I've been out for a few meals now, and the government's latest scheme has certainly helped in terms of, the Eat Out to Help Out. So I was out last night. So, things like that will help. And, and I know of restaurants that are fully booked every single Wednesday or Monday to Wednesday for the whole of August. So, so there are certain green shoots for sure. But I don't think it'll ever go back to being the same as it was. It's just going to have to be, it's best said, a new normal, basically. That's what it's going to have to be.
I think that is the phrase that's here to stay for now, anyway.
Yeah, sadly.
Yeah. Thank you very much for that. Kate, could I ask your thoughts on where you think the future may go?
Yeah, I think that with the corporate side of office catering, I think that has already bounced back in a way, that there still is all those same people. They are all still want to be fed. They still want all those perks. It's just about us and City Pantry, all of you coming up with the ideas to sell it. So I think in a way, and I think that the office catering side of things has bounced back, and it will still be there as long as we can keep coming up with ideas of how to get that food to the staff safely and responsibly. I think it's more the event side of things, like I'm saying, that's a big part of our business that is the biggest concern, because events are most of the PR style events, they're all just based on attendance. And so I just think that people won't be holding those events because they'll be too worried about the attendance. And a few things that really keep us going throughout the year is the few massive events we do, like award ceremonies or summer parties, and they'll be missing. It's going to be smaller events, which is still fantastic to do. You meet lots of potential clients along the way, but it just doesn't quite have the turnover that we used to. But the biggest, saddest part from us from the event side of things was all the weddings we've had this year. They've all been rescheduled for next year. So I just really, really hope that everyone who's already had to reschedule for spring, they can still have the wedding that they envision. But
yeah, it's as I said, there's a widespread impact. This is sad beyond just the hospitality industry. It's impacting all different types of businesses. And I think what was interesting that you both mentioned about kind of traffic and what was happening and that coming back, and it leads into our next speaker, who's going to talk a little bit more about logistics and how that's moved forward. But thank you both, Kate and Paz, for your feedback there. Really good conversation, and as I said, we'll get some questions and Q&A at the end. And if anyone has any more questions, as I said, please feel free to tweet them to us, and we'll get round to them. What we're going to go to next, as I said, is Shukri from one of our logistics partner, Urbit, and he's going to talk us through some of the changes that have taken place, but also maybe some of those changes that are still needed. So I'm going to hand over to you now, Shukri, if you want to take it away.
Thank you. Hi everyone, my name is Shukri Zahoni, Head of Sales at Urbit UK, and I'm absolutely delighted to be part of this great lineup. So yeah, in this presentation, I would love to for us to look at some of the challenges that we face in the urban last mile, as well as a little bit about Urbit and how we adapted to, or had to support our partners and customers during COVID-19. And if we look at I think we can start with the e-commerce, and we're all aware how e-commerce has revolutionized business and delivery volumes are growing rapidly. Problem is, we're still trying to deliver that volume with the same old man in a white van delivery model that's been around for decades. This, for us, prompts three key challenges to our cities, our consumers, and our brands. So firstly, if we look at our cities like London, for example, delivery volumes are exploding, but our streets are not getting any wider. So what this does, it adds congestion problems, pollution problems, and noise as well to our cities. In fact, 2 million people in London today live with toxic air. And secondly, consumer behavior is changing rapidly. So companies like Netflix, Spotify, Amazon, they're all driving the I economy, as we call it, and where a tailored experience is not only a benefit, but it's an expectation. What does that mean for the delivery industry? Well, you could offer same-day delivery, you could offer shorter delivery windows, you could offer sustainable alternatives. Also, the free delivery argument is also being challenged because 48% of consumers are willing to pay for the convenience. And I know I'm one of those. And lastly, looking at the brands, retailers, in the world of e-com and Amazon, retailers are increasingly losing control of their brands and consumers. Problem is, who owns that last interaction with the consumer? The delivery company does, we know that, but whose brand are they promoting? What do they want? What do they do with your data? 84% of consumers are unlikely to shop with you again as a retailer, following a poor delivery service. So that is where we see that's the new battleground. And the good news is we have to adapt. That's what we do in the marketplace. And there is a new way of doing things, and that's where Urbit UK comes in. Urbit is a Swedish tech company specializing in green last mile logistics, working with partners like Pantry and many others to reduce carbon emissions in big cities like London and enhance the delivery experience as well. We provide sustainability for in 3 areas: for cities, consumers, as well as brands. So when we look at sustainable cities, for us, what it means is we don't drive anything. We don't drive any vans, cars or mopeds. We deliver on foot. Yes, it's a walk-in delivery service. And we also use public transport. We use bicycles and cargo bikes. It's an eco-certified delivery service. Looking at the customer or consumers, well, not being stuck in traffic, and I think Kate and Paz, you refer to it, not being stuck in traffic means a delivery service like Urbit can be agile, can be quick in reach customers. and also giving the consumers the visibility and control over their delivery experience means we can maintain 99% success rate on first attempt. And that is unheard of, largely in the logistics space. This naturally leads to a happy retailer with a customer satisfaction of 4.9 out of 5, because we're helping you as a brand to build your customer loyalty with a personal, white labeled, sustainable delivery service. So Urbit becomes an extension of your brand. And that's how we work currently with City Pantry and their partners. As regards our response to COVID and how Urbit had to adapt, well, just like everyone else here, we've had to implement a few things. We've been working with our partners and our delivery assistants, Urbers, as we call them. And so firstly, with our partners, we've implemented things like zero contact delivery, zero contact collection, proof of delivery in terms of, by code and safe sign, communicating with our customers, as well as working with our partners, our retailers, on their policies. As regards our towards our Urbers, delivery assistants, we rolled out our very own sick pay scheme, which is far more generous than the government one. We're very proud of that. And we've also restricted the use of public transport to just essential products. So that was one thing that we focused on a lot, especially in the first weeks of the lockdown. And we've been able to provide hand sanitizers and masks as well. Now, with logistics permanently disrupted, these measures are here to stay due to the demand on e-commerce and logistics providers. Now, the last mile challenge is pretty much the same, but it's exponentially greater. So with COVID and e-commerce and logistics has in many ways taken 5 to 10 years perhaps leap, and those behaviors are likely to be here to stay. So only with much greater volumes. And again, you refer to it, guys, driving into London, it's a nightmare. So where are we going with this? How sustainable are we in terms of moving forward? And so that's it. Any questions, please fire away.
Thank you very much, Shukri. Really interesting there, I think, from the point of view of having that sustainable model. It's certainly something that we see from our clients and the businesses that we talk with, is that sustainability and how that's delivered is becoming more and more important. And I think Beth mentioned it earlier as well, is that, how is individually packaged food, for example, how sustainable is that? And I think all of the pieces that fit together, whether that be the right packaging and the right delivery provider, will still enable us to make sure that we're doing the right things in terms of sustainability for businesses. So thank you very much for taking us through that and the host of challenges that already exist and what's likely to happen with volume. And as Shukri said, if you do have any questions, feel free to tweet them and we will come to them at the end during the Q&A session. Finally, and last but not least, I'd like to introduce Alex Jones, our head of talent at City Pantry, to talk about a topic that's already come up today a couple of times, and that's employee engagement and certainly the role that food plays in that relationship. So Alex, if you'd like to take it away, please.
Thank you, Shane. So I'm Alex, head of talent here at City Pantry, as Shane rightly just mentioned. So today, going to spend a small amount of time talking about employee engagement and food and the relationship between all of that. So hopefully you'll find it interesting and be able to take something back away from here. So a bit of kind of context. So pre-COVID, I went from leading City Pantry's kind of efforts in scaling, introducing strategy around sourcing, employee value proposition, employer branding, all the usual stuff that sits in a talent acquisition and people team. Obviously, things changed quite a lot over the last kind of 4 months, and now I'm far more involved in helping lead our internal learning and development initiatives, employee engagement, and things along those kind of lines. What is employee engagement? So, I mean, by definition, employee engagement is a workplace approach resulting in the right conditions for all members of an organisation to give their best every day, commit to their organisation's goals and their values, be motivated to contribute to organisational success, all with an enhanced sense of their own well-being. So a lot of words, appreciate that, but to us, to simplify it, and what it means to City Pantry is the understanding and appreciation of our employees, their mental and physical well-being, their drive, their passion, and ultimately their lives. You know, working in a business, is a big life decision. So to us, it's the kind of framework that creates a high-performing, intelligent, and engaged team, and ultimately creating captivating work. And it's the science behind that us as a people and talent team use to make it all kind of happen. So it's something we've had to adapt and overcome throughout lockdown, and enhance to fit with the new normal, as everybody keeps mentioning. So what were we kind of doing as a business kind of pre-COVID? So we'll kind of talk about that, and how it managed to kind of push us into our front rooms like we all are today. So pre-COVID, we were running an office of nearly 100 people, 97 to be precise, and hopefully to go up in the next kind of couple of weeks, which would be lovely. We practice what we preach, so we're obviously all talking about food here, and City Pantry is very much at the core of who we are, and providing lunch to everybody in the business 3 times a week, as well as the regular treats, occasional bits of breakfast and the odd birthday cake, which certainly doesn't do much for the old waistline. And within that, we kind of encourage everyone to eat together at communal lunch tables, which ultimately is there to kind of remove the traditional barriers of work communication, to kind of build meaningful conversation and impactful relationships. So it's kind of building out that kind of internal culture through the power of food. So it's also a key opportunity to take time away from your desk, which is ultimately really important when you're in the office, but also when you're away, and to refuel and recharge so that you can feel well rested, and you can do the best work and stay concentrated on what you have to do. So obviously, ultimately, all of that kind of contributes towards nurturing a happy and healthy team, which is proven to increase productivity. Employee wellness. So before COVID, we provide free classes to everyone every week, and we're not talking maths and English and things like that. We're talking kind of yoga, Pilates, HIIT, meditation, and things along those lines. Socially, I think somebody mentioned earlier on about the kind of social side of things as well. The standard pub quiz nights, sports clubs, such as the City Pantry football team, who were always interested to hear reports back from them when they were playing, and the summer party. And our culture kind of thrives because of all of these things, all of those things that were happening. But it thrives really because it's kind of practiced and it's embraced from the top down, and it's enhanced and strengthened peer to peer within the business as well. So it's a massive web of everyone kind of pulling together, which is great. But things obviously changed, like I said, since March, which meant we had to kind of rethink the way that we did almost everything when it came to kind of employee engagement. So we had to kind of look at how we were going to kind of combat this new world that we had to live in, mostly your house, and how we're going to keep people engaged whilst working from home. I mean, it's fairly straightforward to create a productive and engaged team whilst you're working together in an office. Everyone's in one space, and you have an element of control over that. But as we're all familiar with, employee engagement whilst working from home has been a challenge felt across all industries during this pandemic. You don't have that personal touch, that physical interaction with people passing in the corridor. Everybody is very distributed. It's really difficult to kind of manage. So some of the initiatives that we put in place was setting up a dedicated isolation club channel on Slack. Solely dedicated to our people, keeping remote working interactive as possible, as joyous as possible, fun, informative, relaxed, engaging, all of those things. It's there to kind of encourage positivity, keeping interdepartmental conversation and more flowing as best as we possibly could. And it's supposed to kind of represent our kind of team lunch breaks and us all sitting down together for lunch. When we were back in the office, it's kind of supposed to mirror that in a virtual way. And our team had to be virtually creative onto the second point. We did the obligatory lockdown quizzes I think all of us, when we end up going back to actual pub quizzes, are going to be absolute whiz kids. So they might have to step their game up, that's for sure. Replacing physical fitness classes with Zoom exercise classes to keep people active. So nominating people each week to share a workout via Zoom, and everyone follows through with that in their front room and things like that, which was always good fun. And one of the more successful activities that we did once or twice over the last few months is scavenger hunts, which are really good fun. So it gets people moving. It's not forcing any exercise upon anyone because it's not everyone's cup of tea. But also it kind of distracts all of that with fun as well. And research suggests it kind of directly kind of physical movement and being active directly correlates to a boosted mental output and ultimately further engagement. It was important we kind of focused on clear and consistent communication. I mean, we've been lucky that it's always been at the heart of who we are, a very open and honest organisation from the top down, and from the bottom up. I mean, it's just kind of the heart and soul of how we work as a business, is that honesty and integrity that's built through that. So we had to kind of look into that in a bit more detail across the kind of workforce, and see how everyone really felt about that. And, so we started doing regular pulse surveys, which kind of measured and tracked employee engagement, stress, mental health, to really get under the skin of our people, and really understand what's making them tick and what's not. We kind of out of that built this clear understanding of what part of you as a team member or as team members, if you're a leader, how they kind of play in the company's focus, and this gives them a greater sense of structure to their kind of working day, which is really important when the lines are kind of blurred. You don't have that set routine that you'd be used to traveling into work and so on, and also kind of making sure people are in the know at all times. For example, we have 2 weekly all hands meetings, which is a get together of everybody who's available in the business every week. It's usually the beginning and end of the week, so it's nice kind of bookshelved like that. So there's a continuous flow of information communication from pretty much anybody that isn't involved in that. So communication really is key when you start transitioning between office life and home life. And kind of second to last, but I mean, celebrating success and helping your people feel good, I think is really, really important when it comes to creating an engaged workforce. So ensuring teams and your people feel valued. It's a challenging and stressful time for everyone, but we all support each other and we're all in it together. We're all living this same thing. It's not like you're isolated in how you feel and where you are. Making sure weekly successes are shouted out in the all hands. And over a few of the bank holidays, we treat people to Pantry packages consisting mainly of brownies. And I think Shay mentioned earlier on, they are a fond favourite of all of us here at City Pantry. So, thank you very much to Paz and the team for coming up with that, because it's brilliant. And then the virtual summer party to replace our kind of annual party. And the annual kind of summer party is a massive deal here. It's a big moment for the team to kind of celebrate a massive success of doing well over the year. So this year we created a kind of a virtual version of that, where we set a theme, everybody dressed up. We sent Pantry packages to everybody, and we had some great games and an impromptu DJ set by the infamous Captain Pantler, which to most of you watching probably don't know who that is, nor do I, but a lot of people at City Pantry will be familiar with him. And so all of this really kind of helped us understand a little bit more about the new normal and what that was kind of going to look like. And starting to realise that maybe it would be a little bit more permanent than initially kind of thought. So how we kind of prepared, so some of the findings from those pulse surveys I mentioned before, and the improved communication loops across the business kind of helped us build out preparation for this new normal. So firstly, we kind of concentrate on people-focused planning. So we wanted to ensure that our people felt happy and safe for when they return to the office. We created kind of clear communications again around logistics, around the rotas involved, the do's and the don'ts, the high-level plan behind the return to work initiative as well. So people are kind of familiar with how it will work before it kind of happens. It's almost like a pre-boarding before kind of an onboarding, if you were kind of bringing an employee on board. Making sure people are aware they're not forced into the office if they don't feel safe. You know, it's no joke. This COVID business, you know, it's been a tragic few months for quite a lot of people, and it's still quite a scary kind of concept of being on a train or in the city surrounded by potentially hundreds of other people. You know, so we wanted to make sure we're solidifying the fact that it's not forced in any way. We explained clearly about our phased return to work with the reduced capacity as well. So in order to maintain a safe environment, we obviously can't open the office to everyone all the time. So we're kind of implementing a phased approach with certain teams and people given priority to use the office when needed. You know, so making sure we're abiding by any guidelines that are handed down from group or from the government. Continuation of flexible working. So before COVID-19, we actually, you know, we're pretty good with the flexible working environment stuff. You know, employees could work from home a couple of days a week, if not more, sometimes less. You know, so it was that part of that autonomous kind of ethos that we have as a business. So we'll continue to kind of enhance that approach as the office reopens to mold around new normals, which obviously supports people's changed lifestyles and circumstances. And importantly, we're discovering new ways of socializing and eating together, which is to us really, really important, and will be to other kind of businesses out there, and certainly to our vendors and caterers like Brownie and Country City Catering. So our people team are kind of figuring out how to get, you know, around 100 people together for social events, whilst keeping social distancing guidelines. And we kind of come to the conclusion, as of many, that virtual is probably the way forward for now. Hopefully that will change in the not too distant future. So we feel like we've done quite a good job so far looking after our current employees. But the next kind of challenge for us, and specifically me and my team, was how do we look at kind of prospective and new hires coming into the business as well. So looking at kind of talent acquisition and its relationship with the new normal, or what we perceive that to be. So we quickly kind of adopted virtual over physical, which I mentioned just a moment ago. So all of our interviews and assessments that we do through an interview process are carried out virtually, which is brand new to us. You know, we were a massive fan of that physical interaction when it came to kind of interviewing people. We designed and rolled out a strong virtual onboarding process to make sure new employees feel a part of the team as quickly and efficiently as possible. Adopted a much stronger online presence in the form of employer branding, marketing and advertising, which, you know, Shane could talk for hours about the kind of work that the marketing team has done over the last 4 months to really kind of ramp that up. You know, they've done an excellent job here. Embracing virtual events, a bit like this. So in the absence of physical events such as webinars, you know, and using those over things like meetups, you know, wider community engagement, and trying to kind of tap into that pool, and using those kind of over things like careers fairs and things like that, which we tend to use from a talent perspective. Demand for work perks that benefit remote workers too. I mean, that was quite a big challenge for us, because we were so used to, you know, being everywhere in one place, or everyone in one place, and now we're all over. You know, we've got people all over the UK, we've got people who are abroad now with family and friends. You know, so trying to encapsulate that benefits and the perks of kind of working here and have that in a distributed manner was a massive challenge. So kind of flexible and remote working will be here for a while, and it'd be even more attractive benefit moving forward. I think, you know, everybody's come to terms with that. You know, as much as some people might not like it, it is a brilliant perk to have as an option. So work perks should also be available and accessible to those in the office and from working from home. So we're kind of having to think about how we're going to balance those two things out. And now with food and the pantry package stuff, Teams at Home initiative that we do here at City Pantry as well, that makes that a lot easier. We can still have the physical stuff for people who are in the office, but we're still able to supply that to workforces who are going to be working from home, whether that's permanently or whether that's on a temporary basis as well. And then flexible support in the form of mental health initiatives. We use Sanctus, for example, and training and development, and all that kind of stuff to kind of enhance that remote working lifestyle. So, you know, making sure you're not just sitting there day in, day out, feeling like you're not really getting anywhere just because you're not around other people. And then finally, kind of internal recruitment that gives employees a chance to advance. A subject close to my heart. So companies have obviously been hit really hard by this pandemic, and may not have the budget to recruit externally or to do anything, you know, fundamentally. So we've been encouraging kind of talent here inside the business to consider other positions in other teams, to not only kind of develop their career, but but address critical kind of workforce gaps from a business perspective. So we've leveraged kind of data, we've looked at gap analysis to kind of understand the map of where and how you can utilize current employees to strengthen kind of critical areas of the business where you're unable to hire externally. So all that being said, that there is more to attracting and retaining there's more than attracting and retaining talent than great onboarding, internal movers and shakers, and virtual events, of course. So the role food kind of plays in what we do is obviously super important, more so maybe to us because it's what we do, but to other businesses and customers of ours, we know it's as important part of day-to-day employee engagement. So research suggests that attractive benefits and perks are seen to be a major driver in luring new and exciting talent, and more importantly, retaining existing people in your team. So I'll put that into perspective, and the kind of important, I stress the importance of that. So it really does cost a lot to replace an employee. So it can cost between 90 to 200% of an employee's annual salary to source, interview and hire a replacement, which really does beg the question as to why you wouldn't want to create a more engaged and a high-performing workforce through benefits and perks of working in a great business. Millennials and Gen Z expect more from their company than one would expect. So both of those groups currently comprise around 35% of the UK workforce and are set to represent almost 50% share of the global workforce by 2020, 2021. I mean, it's a huge number of new and exciting people you're going to want to attract, hire and retain that you've maybe not even thought of yet as a business. And the scariest thing, I guess, is where do you even start with that? Well, I mean, further studies kind of suggest by KPMG found that millennials, they prioritize culture. They want to enjoy their work experience. They desire open and honest communication, seek flexibility at work, require social impact from their employer, wish to socialize more with work, and want to celebrate the small successes as well as the large, which I appreciate may sound like a lot, but they're actually pretty simple and easy ways to address an ever-growing majority in the future workforce. And a great starting place is to create a positive working culture. And studies show that food helps foster a positive workplace culture, which can attract and ultimately retain top talent. Another survey by Reed says that 90% of employees who take a proper lunch break felt more refreshed and ready to get back to work. Obviously, we didn't want to take just their word for it, so we thought we'd do our own research and found that 41% of employees said they'd be more likely to join a business if it provided regular hot lunches for free, and 60% of employees think eating together as a team is really important for developing great work culture. And that's all according to our City Pantry 2019 YouGov report, which I'm sure you can find if you wanted to read into that some more. In another survey, I promise it's the last one, 72% of workers cited culture as a factor in influencing their decision to work at a given company. So, when it comes to attracting people, you really do need to think about things like food at work to really stand out from the crowd and be the place that people want to come and work. So the conclusion is this, I suppose, encouraging employees to take adequate breaks with peers, paired with healthy eating habits, can improve productivity up to 20%. Now, that being said, you can't just chuck a burrito at your sales team and expect a huge uptick in productivity and money, flooding through the doors and all sorts. Business culture comes from the top. So leadership teams should really demonstrate the company's core values during work and social time, and put healthy eating habits at the top of that list. And from a kind of an evolutionary anthropology perspective, eating together as a long primal tradition of being like a social glue, and that seems to continue in today's workplaces, which is, kind of paramount that everybody is embracing that. So kind of finally, so food is the most popular work perk. So, and we really wanted to understand, how popular it really is. It's important to us, but it's important to our customers and our vendors as well. So office managers say that food is their favorite company benefit. In our 2020 Office Heroes survey, 35% of participants said that food is their favorite work benefit, followed by healthcare and then professional training, which is, a massive chunk, just over a third of all participants. And it's the work perk that receives the most positive feedback from employees, which are, the people who matter when it comes to talking about this. In the same survey, almost 50% of those office managers said their colleagues speak most positively about food perks. The remaining 50% clearly haven't tried bad brownies or country city catering. So what can I say? You're losing out there as it is. It can kind of encourage healthier habits, which leads to increased productivity and employee well-being, which is the kind of goal of all of this, really. You know, in another survey, in our desk eating habits survey, 62% of participants said their workplace make no conscious effort at all to encourage their employees to be fit and healthier at work. And 32% of the incentives from their employer would improve their eating and exercise habits at work. So providing nutritious meals for your employees can increase productivity levels, well-being and engagement, and ultimately feeding into the success of your company. So there we have it. Lots of stats, lots of surveys. I didn't realise there were so many. You know, but it was a bit of fun kind of looking into all that. Hopefully, you found something useful out of all of this, and thank you very much for listening.
Thanks, Alex. I think, you know, what's key from what everyone's been talking about as well is that how do you maintain you know, employee engagement when everyone's so far apart and socially distant, and it's clearly a challenge. So it's good to obviously hear those thoughts from you as our talent lead, and also, you know, some of those stats that come out from various studies indicating that's definitely the case. So thank you very much for taking us through that. We do now have a couple of minutes. We're running a little bit over, but we've got a couple of minutes now just to go through a couple of Q&As, a couple of bits and pieces that have come in. So I'm going to go for the first question. This is actually for yourself, Beth. So this is related to the return to work. And so the question just is, how much time and effort has been invested so far into planning for the return to work, and how much more work do you think needs to happen?
I think a lot more work still needs to happen. It's quite hard to predict, obviously, what's going to happen and what's changing all the time, and when we're actually going to be going back to the office. So, like I mentioned, we're planning to go back to the office fully in January 2021, which I think most companies are planning to do now. But we've also toyed with the idea of letting some people come back into the office in September, October, if they are really struggling from working from home. And the main factor for people to be working in the office is if they find this working from home situation really hard on their mental health, or they haven't got the space capacity to do so. So we're trying to accommodate people to have the option to come back into the office if they feel comfortable, but also, you know, like you mentioned earlier, very much like their own disposal. If they don't feel comfortable coming in, then that's fine as well. It's catering for both sides of the company and what people want to do. But we're trying to plan as best we can, and thinking of everything in the office is also very difficult when you're not there. So like I said, like the tea bags, we've got to really think down to detail about what's needed to change in order to kind of make people feel comfortable. So definitely still a lot of work to be done. But all we can really do is plan ahead and wait for everyone to say, like, go, and then we're ready to kind of like react to everyone's like positions, really.
That's a fair answer. I think there are a huge number of people waiting for that go to happen. Who knows when that's going to happen, but yeah, definitely I think a lot of people are waiting for it. Thank you very much for the answer. Shukri, we did have one come in regarding logistics, and I know you talked about it a little bit anyway, but what do you see the long-term impact or longer-term impact of COVID being on sustainability in the logistics space?
I think, I mean, with COVID and things, it changes everything when it comes to logistics. With e-com, you know, the delivery volumes are exploding, meaning whatever issues we had with urban logistics before, they will just be more impactful going forward. So meaning, you know, you look at service quality, you look at pollution, congestion in big cities. So I think, I believe a radical change is needed here. And we're not saying that urban is the solution, but it's definitely possibly part of an ecosystem of sustainable solutions to what is a complex and low margin business. And with new online behaviors, you know, from consumers, this will play an even greater part in our lives and our cities as well.
Brilliant. Thank you, Shukri, and thank you for the question submission there from one of our viewers. And then we've got one more that I think we can squeeze in regarding this is more more vendor partner focused. So Kate and Paz, maybe if I go to you first, Kate, for this question. Have you found that there's been any difficulty or need to change suppliers during COVID with the impact that's happened on logistics? Have you found that supply chains or the need for changing ingredients and things like that has had to change?
Actually, there's a very, very interesting point. I think that was actually an issue that came up that we didn't even realize would be an issue when we were trying to find the best way around all of this. What happened initially was all the fresh produce suppliers, our fish supplier, not so much our meat, but definitely the vegetables, all the prices just shot up. And it was so unpredictable. It's not like we just knew what the prices would be. We would be ordering and then one day something would be double the price, which is very hard for profit margins because we can't tell a customer, oh, by the way, you know, the price of your lunch has just doubled. So it's just something that we have to just actually rely on our suppliers to actually a little bit of give and take. Mm-hmm. So actually we did move suppliers a little bit. A few we'd go back to old trusted suppliers that we just know would look after us, and when the prices go up, kind of share that hit so that nobody lost it too much. But everything's starting to go back to normal now. I think that everybody hopefully will rely a lot more on British produce now from all of this, because we've all kind of realized that we can do it. So hopefully that will come into effect.
Thank you, Kate. And then Paz, from your point of view, from Bad Brownie's point of view, did you have similar struggles, or was it slightly different for you guys?
It was a similar struggle, but slightly different. We definitely had supplier issues. Very random things like coconut cream. Sadly, we can't buy that from England. But because of COVID, there were routes disrupted across the world, and our supply couldn't do it. Different suppliers couldn't do it. We spoke to the actual producer. They said, oh yeah, absolutely, it's all stocked. We don't know when it's going to sort out. Moved to a different supplier for a different product, and then that actually stopped a couple of weeks ago as well. So we're constantly searching for some very specific products that we just can't ship across the world to us. So in terms of the day-to-day, it's broadly been fine. I think there's just been delays really for us, and when we've had kind of baked plans, because we produce, we plan our production several days or a couple of weeks in advance, and that does really kind of affect things when you can't get chocolate, which is fundamental to brownies, yes. At the right time. But overall, it's given the situation, it's been really good.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that's about all the time we've got. So I hope everyone that's watching this, I hope you found it useful and hopefully insightful. We will be sharing the resources and the recording for this. So if you registered beforehand, you'll get that automatically. If not, you can go to the website at info.citypantry.com/Future of Food webinar. And that will also be on our socials, so you can go and find that, and you can request any of the materials that we've gone through today. I'd also like to thank everyone on the call right now. So everyone that's joined us, Kate, Beth, Shukri, Paz, and Alex, thank you very much for your time and for sharing all your thoughts. It's been really interesting and useful. So that will be the end of our webinar now. Everyone have a lovely afternoon, and thank you very much for joining. Thank you all.